That's right. It's time for the Walter Bosley channel at YouTube. I've got my Robert Evans glasses on. You know what that means? That means Todd Wood's going to be joining us, booby. And by my background tonight, you can see that it's that season. My favorite season of the year. So I'm going to shake up some brew. You know, doesn't this stuff look like it's a laboratory bottle, like from Frankenstein or from Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Ain't that kind of cool? I like this cold brew. This is Calafia cold brew. And by the way, in my Secret of the Amazon Queen novel, Calafia is the name of the Amazon Queen. And I think it's appropriate for Halloween that our buddy Gil is joining us. And you know what? I have no doubt that he's here from the other side. So it's kind of dark over here, and I can hear him saying that because it's Halloween. No, actually, you know what? It's bright over there, and Gil's probably, enjoying some vegan delight. As you know, Gil was a vegan. So, hello, Gil. How are you? And everybody's here for tonight's episode of Killifornia. The Devil Made Me Do It. I want to welcome everybody. I'm gonna run through the live chat and welcome a bunch of people before I start rolling on the show. We have Rui Gonsalves. We have D. Dorothy Papineau. D. Dorothy Papineau. That sounds like a name you'd hear in True Detective Season 1, right? We were investigating the Dora Lang mystery, and we had to go question D. Dorothy Papineau. Nick N. is here. Nick, I'm telling you, Nick, these are right here. I've started these. Okay, I've started them. You're gonna be seeing more of that. So we have Nick N. We have Nick of Time. We have Jackpot. Marshall's here. Marshall Mahivnizerl. Hey now. Gustavo Garcia Echeverria is here. Or Gustavo Garcia Echeverria is here. Kenneth Johnston. And D.E. Saccone. And Crystal Fire. And Wendy Ader, right? And there we go. Okay, so I'm going to get rolling. Before we bring our friend Todd in, I have something he would like me to share with you. So this is an article, okay, from the Ann Arbor Sun, dated June 28th, 1974. And here we go. Titled The Exorcist, a CIA script. One of the most widely advertised and popular but least understood films to reach the mass audiences in several years is The Exorcist, based on a novel by William Blatty. Some background on the author and his techniques in the book and film tend to explain the effect of Blatty's work on a mass audience. After graduating from Georgetown University, where the campus scenes in the movie were shot, Blatty worked for the Central Intelligence Agency in Lebanon in the 1950s under U.S. Information Agency cover. Later, he returned to Washington to become Policy Branch Chief of the Psychological Warfare Division of the U.S. Air Force. Why does that not surprise me? As such, his job involved the military's promotion of popular anti-communist sentiment around McCarthyism at home and Cold War foreign policy abroad. An example of the work carried out by psychological warfare in U.S. foreign policy is the orchestrated exodus of Catholics from North to South Vietnam in the mid-50s. In collaboration with Dr. Tom Dooley, whom Blatty quotes in his book, and others, An extensive campaign was carried out by the Catholic Relief Service, local Catholic leaders, and an American psychological warfare team combined to drive peasants south of the DMZ by telling them the Virgin Mary has departed from the north and Christ has gone to the south. I want to get a t-shirt that says that. Amateur as this appears now, quoting, the mass flight was admittedly the result of an extensive, well-conducted, and in terms of its objective, very successful American psychological warfare operation, end quote, from the Indochina Story, Bantam, 1970. I will continue reading here. In this post-60s era, when a majority of youth on and off campus display a frustration with or an abandonment of traditional political protest activities, moviegoing has enjoyed a sharp rise. This atmosphere has created a mass audience, one without specific political or spiritual direction, and ripe for suggestions, which The Exorcist carries. The techniques used by Blatty in his Exorcist were well honed by years of practice in the government business. While in the 50s, crude psychological warfare could be foisted on naive groups, Mr. Blatty's sophisticated talents have several messages in the mid-1970s. Social science and faith in our own identity is eclipsed by the threat of infestation by demonic forces or the devil, or to quote Father Marin in his central role as the priest exorciser, I think the demon's target is not the possessed. It is us, the observers, every person in this house. And I think the point is to make us despair, to reject our own humanity, to see ourselves as ultimately bestial, as ultimately vile and putrescent, without dignity, ugly, unworthy. And there lies the heart of it, perhaps, in worthlessness. For I think belief in God is not a matter of reason at all. I think it finally is a matter of love, of accepting the possibility that God could love us. Political activism is attacked by one of the main characters, Chris McNeil, who condemns a campus demonstration by saying, "It's dumb. This scene is absolutely dumb." Her mind, though untutored, never mistook slogans for truth, and so the rebel cause to her was dumb. It didn't make sense. How come? She wondered. Generation gap? That's a crock. I'm 32. It's just plain dumb, that's all. End quote. It is Blatty's message, then, that spiritual fixation and religious orthodoxy are, in the final analysis, at the service of political reaction. For religion, activated as a mass response to an externally conceived threat, can be a powerful ideological cement to keep the masses spellbound in a time of profound social crisis. For Blatty, the lessons of the 1955 Vietnam campaign have not been forgotten. Only the place and time have changed. And that was from Counterspy, the Journal of the Organizing Committee for a Fifth Estate. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on Todd Wood. Hey, Bubby.
Hey, Bobby. How you doing? Where are the
all here.
pictures?
Pictures. And The Exorcist is indeed one of the most profound motion pictures ever made. Certainly one of the most impactful, and for a particular generation, disturbing.
Yeah.
And apparently very, very influential where tonight's topic is concerned.
Oh yeah, most definitely. The whole idea of demonic possession is absolutely fascinating, you know? Just the mere fact that, this idea that something unhuman can enter your body and take control. And then you have to take into consideration the MK Ultra aspect of everything, which is sort of more of a more grounded version of demonic possession, man-made demonic possession, if you will.
Well, I want to ask you why this amazes me. I had never seen any other source that I can recall that identified Blatty's military time. I had no idea he was involved with psychological warfare with the United States Air Force. And that just, folks, remember what I've said. Remember what the historians of MK Ultra said. The CIA had to come clean in front of Congress in 1975. To this day, the United States Air Force has never revealed its development with MK Ultra stuff. And when you're talking psychological warfare, when you're talking what Blatty was involved with, you're talking about MK Ultra. And when you're talking about the Air Force, you're talking about a development of that technology, as it's called, that we don't know the pedigree of. And it's just highly suspicious that the era of serial killers really stepped up after this.
Right. I mean, The Exorcist came out in 73. The church committee hearings, was that 74 or 75?
The hearings, I believe, were 75. I keep saying 73 or 74, but then I remind myself that I believe the hearings were 75.
Well, and the interesting thing about those hearings is they sort of got away with it because most of the files were burnt up. They were destroyed one way or another. Hell,
destroyed.
They were destroyed.
Don't exist.
Yeah, a lot of stuff wasn't written down to begin with, too. It was just kind of a bunch of guys saying, "Hey, we're going to do this experiment over here. Don't let's not write anything down." So,
yeah, right.
But yeah, do you remember the first time you saw The Exorcist?
I remember the advertisements on its initial release, and that really, really scared the hell out of me. It was basically just the camera moving slowly down the dark hallway towards her bedroom, and you heard, I think it was her name, Regan, and yikes. Now, the first time, I had only seen photos of it and in little snippets of it for years.
Yeah,
I think I must have been in college before I watched a substantial amount of that film, and yet to this day I have never sat and watched it from beginning to end.
Oh wow.
I've seen the whole thing, but never in one sitting. It bothers me. It bothers me too much. It bothers me right now.
First time I saw it was on HBO. Like, growing up as a kid, I probably saw it way too young.
Yeah.
I think
How old were you?
Oh gosh, I had to have been like 12.
I could see myself doing that to my son.
Yeah, I just, you're left unsupervised and you're flipping through the channels and
Todd, wait a minute. You were 12 years old in what year?
Oh crap. Born in 1985, so it was like what, 97?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, 12 years old, you weren't tuning into the aerobicize videos.
No. Actually, I was I was like a film buff without knowing I was a film buff. Like,
right. You kind of naturally were there, right?
Right. I naturally I watched The Good Son. Like, I was forbidden to watch the movie The Good Son with Macaulay Culkin, and I watched it anyways.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you were one of those type. That was the way to get you to watch something.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, have you seen yeah, go ahead.
No, you go first.
Have you seen The Ninth Configuration?
I didn't get to watch all of it. I got to watch some of it. Did you see it? That thing I was wondering about with the astronaut. Did you notice that, or with the Ninth Configuration?
Oh, there's nothing out there.
Nothing.
That part where he kind of. You mean the part where he's flashing back to his mission, where he loses his mind and he's screaming, "There's nothing out there," or the part on the moon?
No, I just meant like the connection between the Exorcist and the Ninth Configuration. Like,
yes. She says you're gonna die up there.
Yeah.
Ninth Configuration is something we will have to dedicate an episode to on this channel, I think, because
that sounds like a plan.
Very interesting film.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No. I was saying so.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, the character when I watched The Exorcist,
Yeah.
like the character I was most taken by, I think most people were, was Damien Karras. I mean, you had this guy
Yes.
who was like having a crisis of faith, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he kind of has to man up. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
classic. It's a great character.
Right. He's, the soldier that's lost his faith in the cause and the war, but he's got to put his helmet on and pick up the gun again and
Yeah,
go into that war and
right.
ends up in the greatest battle of his life,
Hmm.
you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, and then you have like everything with The Exorcist. This movie is so unique because, you know, speaking of demonic possession, I mean, all the weird stuff that happened on set during making the film,
Yeah.
right? You had people dying. You had the fire that burned the house down, except for Reagan's room,
Yeah.
right? I mean, just
I've wondered, and I'm serious about this. I wonder if for a time, if I know this sounds silly, I'm wondering if Linda Blair had trouble with, being asked out on dates or anything, because whenever
yeah,
over the years, whenever I've seen her in something, I can't help but see, the possessed Reagan and the poor woman.
right,
I just wonder. She seems pretty mentally healthy and well-rounded all the years since that movie was made, in
right.
spite of the weirdness that went on and in spite of what she was asked to do at 12
Right.
years old.
Well, I know she got threats, and like, so that must have had some mental effect on her, right?
Yeah.
So you probably had to go see a psychiatrist or something. 12-year-old or at 13 at that point, perhaps, and receiving death threats. So that's a challenge.
I mean, the last thing I read was she actually was pretty mature for a 12-year-old, pretty
Yeah.
emotionally well-rounded.
Hmm.
Friedkin
Yeah.
seems like the last guy to do a horror film, and yet he has done what I consider the greatest horror film ever made.
Right.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, no, it's kind of out of nowhere, and they're in it after the French Connection, but
Yeah,
then again, like it's almost sort of like synchronicity. He does the French Connection about like one of the biggest heroin busts in human history,
yeah,
or heroin trafficking operations,
yeah.
and then he does The Exorcist, right?
Mhm.
And The Exorcist, like you read before, associated with psychological warfare,
Yeah,
and we're talking about demonic possession, and we kind of like he's just through happenstance, he sort of stumbles into this situation. Now there's later on in the film, during the cerebral angiography,
mhm.
there's a freaking suspected serial killer in
Yeah,
that scene.
a real serial killer, folks. The person playing the role was a real medical professional, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, his name was Paul Bateson, and he was a radar um, technician. He's a radiation specialist, like X-ray specialist.
Yep.
Yeah, and
Did he go on to do his murders after being in the film, or had he done them before?
well, so that's sort of the challenge. No, it would have been after, because the film shot in '73. He ended that relationship that long-term relationship he was in New York after the film, and then he started drinking really heavily. But the question that we're sort of getting into with this exorcism, demonic possession stuff
Yeah.
is that the mind control element, right?
Yes.
The observer.
Yeah.
Well, the thing with Paul Bateson, right?
Mhm.
We know he killed one person,
Yeah.
Addison Verrill, who was a critic for Variety magazine. But
Kinda like killing a lawyer, right?
right, right.
Oh, that's
Uh, but
Walter, you're an asshole.
there's a question of was he the bag murderer, right? did he commit those murders, or was someone trying to manipulate him into taking the fall for those murders?
Yeah.
Now,
Well, don't you find it also interesting that he committed the murders after being in the film? Now, what's
yeah,
interesting is he's not in any of the scenes at the house. He's in a very antiseptic,
mhm.
ugly lit scene
Right,
in a
right,
hospital.
right.
But it's interesting how the curse of the Exorcist seems to have possibly touched him.
Right. It has that's true. That's true. And folks, if you're interested, when you watch The Exorcist, in that scene, he's the one wearing the bracelet. He's wearing a leather bracelet with studs, like little sort of metal studs, like a punk rocker or metalhead type of S&M type of thing.
I was going to
Um,
say it was, didn't I wonder if he turned up as an extra in Cruising that Friedkin did in 1980.
no, what happened with Cruising is
Cruising.
he was offered to do cruising.
Yeah.
Um,
Really?
yeah, he was offered to do cruising. No, William Friedkin was. He turned it down to do
Oh,
sorcerer.
yeah, he did Sorcerer. Yeah.
And then between that point, and like between 75 and 77, when the
Mhm.
murders happened, the bag murders happened.
Mhm.
Also, guys, roughly around the same time the Son of Sam killings were taking place.
Yeah.
Just FYI. William Friedkin finds out about the murder of Addison Verrill.
Yeah.
Right. And that Paul Bateson basically had confessed to Arthur Bell, not to be confused with Art Bell of Coast to Coast AM. Arthur Bell, the journalist for the Village Voice
Yeah.
paper,
Mhm.
or periodical, I guess. And he sees this on the front page, and he's just blown away. He met this guy on the set of The Exorcist, right?
Yeah.
And he actually met him before that when he went to the hospital, the NYU Medical Hospital, to sort of look for something to really make The Exorcist more gruesome and memorable, right?
And more and even more realistic.
Right.
We
Even
have to
more
remember The
realistic.
Exorcist was probably if not the very first, I think it was the first, but
Mm-hmm.
certainly the most realistic
Right.
horror film, and that's what lent to its intensity.
Right.
So he meets this guy on the set of The Exorcist.
Right.
The scenes
And
in
they
the
kind
home.
of hit it off.
Mm-hmm.
That he doesn't even remember the head surgeon, but he remembers this guy,
Yeah,
which is really interesting.
yeah,
But the thing is, so William Friedkin goes and visits Paul Bateson in his jail cell.
yeah,
As he's getting ready for court, right?
yeah.
Or before the trial. And he asked Paul Bateson, well, did you commit these murders? And Paul Bateson can't remember. And according to William Friedkin, he says, yeah, I committed one. I met some guy at this bar, the Mine Shaft in New York, and we went back to my place and I cut him up and I threw him in the Hudson River.
So Bateson was gay, was openly gay.
Paul Bateson, well, he didn't commit to being gay till later, but yeah, he was basically gay.
Okay. I mean, because
yeah, he had a wife and a 14-year-old kid in Germany. He was in the military before he moved to New York.
Air Force?
No,
Or
I think
Army.
Army,
yeah.
Army.
Army training, sir.
Yeah.
So he ended up being, you might say, unavailable to be in Cruising.
Right. He was unavailable to be in Cruising. But the interesting thing, to get back to the whole MK Ultra aspect of this, is he can't remember the other bag murders. So something happened, like sort of Sirhan, white fog, to wipe his memory, and he committed those murders. Or B, he committed one murder, and someone's trying to mentally manipulate him into thinking he had committed the others. So he get a confession, and the NYPD or whomever can wipe it off their books.
What do we know about the victims, briefly?
They were all homosexual male. And they
Yeah,
all
but
went to they all were part of the S&M scene in New York
okay,
City.
the S&M scene, but in their personal lives, had any of them been in the military? Is it known?
Oh, I don't think it's known.
Because
Not
I'm
that I
wondering
saw.
if Bateson was either MK Ultra'd
Mhm.
into doing the murders, or he did one of them, but he was patsied for the rest, which he can't remember.
Right.
I'm wondering if any of the victims were hits, or people
Oh.
who had been in military intelligence who it was decided they needed to be eliminated.
Well, the interesting thing about when you talk about military intelligence is these murders are very similar to another set of murders, the trash bag murders
Mhm,
committed by Patrick Kearney,
mhm.
who we will get more and we'll go more in depth in when we talk about the JFK assassination and the RFK assassination. But needless to say, he claims he went to military language school at Big Sur, California, and he was killing gay men and putting the pieces of their bodies into trash bags, much like the bag murders in New York. The interesting thing about those bag murders, according to William Friedkin, who talked to Paul Bateson, is that at the bottom of the bag it said property of NYU neuropsychiatrics division, right? Now
Okay.
the thing about neuropsychiatrics is at UCLA, the person who was head of the neuropsychiatrics division at UCLA
Mhm.
was Jolyon West. Now, if at UCLA,
Okay.
if they were doing MK Ultra experiments at UCLA, why wouldn't they be doing MK Ultra experiments at NYU?
Mhm.
So my question is, did somebody get a hold of Paul? Of
Yeah.
course, Paul lost his job at NYU, but that doesn't mean the experimentation ended. If
Of
there
course.
was any manipulation or experimentation.
Yeah, well, I mean, come on. You know, it reaches a point with MK Ultra
Mhm.
that, it's kind of like what they say they're doing to us with Mars. They're just
Right,
letting us see relics of a destroyed civilization, but just not saying anything about it. Of course, that's what we're looking at. But
right,
they're not saying anything about it,
mhm.
to see how many people will go, "Nah, it's pareidolia,"
Right,
but,
right, right.
this is not MK Ultra pareidolia. Come on, you have a thread of Jolyon West, you know?
Right. I mean, there's many Jolly West. There's Jolly West on the East Coast. There's Jolly West on the West Coast. Right. Heck, William Joseph Bryan was flying around all over the country. He had his pilot's license. I
Yeah.
mean, he's going all over the place giving lectures.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, let's jump over to, the case from which we draw the title of this evening's
oh,
episode, "The
okay.
Devil Made Me Do It." We'll
Um,
definitely, get
before
back.
we can, if it's okay with you, before we can
Mhm.
go into that case,
Yeah.
that we need to link the exorcism to that case. The devil
Okay.
Made Do It.
Let's do it.
Now,
Yeah.
according to reports or the book Possession,
Mhm.
this true story of an exorcism, the Blatty got his idea for the exorcism from a real life possession case that happened in 1948 into 1949.
Yes.
Now, no one knows the victim's true name. Some call him Roland Doe, others call
Mhm.
him Rodney Mannheim.
Mhm.
And this 13-year-old boy had a aunt, and this aunt was a flamboyant spiritualist, to say the least, who brought a Ouija board into the house. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. They played with the Ouija board. Next thing you know, poor Roland is possessed. The family take him to a Jesuit hospital in Cottage City, Maryland.
Oh, that'll help. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. And they didn't know what to do. Eventually, they turned to the priest. The priest thought he needed a exorcism.
Yeah.
And needless to say, from Cottage City, Maryland, and this might be a Napoleon connection too. The according to the mother, Roland's mother, and his chest was branded St. Louis. So the family moved to St. Louis, New Orleans, right?
Wait,
In which
Wait, repeat that. What was branded St. Louis?
St. Louis looked like it was branded on his chest.
On Roland
Or
Doe?
his stomach, not his chest, his stomach.
Roland Doe, on the
Roland
boy.
Doe, yeah.
And this was during the possession phase.
The possession
period,
phase, yeah.
the period that he was. So, like in the movie, it's help me, but in real life, it's St. Louis. Meet me in St. Louis.
Right.
Jesus, it was freaking mocking at them.
Yeah. They moved to St. Louis, Louisiana. And
okay, go ahead. I was assuming St. Louis.
No, St. Louis, Louisiana, from Cottage City, Maryland. The boy is obviously he's possessed, right? They're doing the exorcisms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And crap's going down. The bed is rumbling, just like in the movie, according to the priest and his notes that were published in the book Possession, a true story of an exorcism, that came out, I think, 1990. And eventually, or I should say this. This is what connects the two cases. Mm-hmm. The boy claimed to have been possessed by legion, multiple spirits,
right?
Multiple demons,
yes,
right. Eventually, the exorcisms were successful, and the boy has no memory, and he lives in obscurity today.
But from what I understand, he's possibly not so obscure, because
really,
in adulthood, I would have to Google this, but the kid who is supposedly the guy who was the kid, in the Exorcist case, emerged, and he had some other industry. I don't think it was entertainment, but I don't know if you have Google handy.
Yeah.
We can look that up.
Anybody in the chat, just let us know, because I didn't see that.
I heard this very recently. Anyway, yeah, I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time looking for it, but if somebody does find it, tip us off.
Right. Well, that's what connects to David Glitzel. The boy who was possessed in the Devil Made Me Do It case is because it's supposedly he was possessed by 40 or more demons. So basically Legion-esque, right? More than one.
How many? How did that many get into him? Just through the Ouija board?
Well, that would be
that was Roland Doe.
Yeah, I would imagine it's through the Ouija board. Yeah, I mean, playing with the Ouija board, you're probably contacting someone different every time.
And all their buddies.
Yeah, all their buddies. That's right.
Wow, right? It's like an STD, really. Think about it. Seriously. I'm not trying to get a laugh. It really is. It's something you don't want, and it can just be rampant like wildfire. And you've got one that's being the voice, so to speak, that you're contacting, and then the other ones, I imagine it like when you see a police raid on a house, and all the cops are lined up and like huddled around each other, and that one guy breaks through the door and they all go
right.
That's anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's basically the connection to the Devil Made Me Do It case, is that both victims were possessed by multiple demons.
Yeah.
Now we can move into the Devil Made Me Do It case.
Do it.
Okay. Well, in 1981, the Glitzel family moved into a new home in Connecticut, where young David Glitzel claims that to have made contact with the spirit of an angry old man. And of course, parents being what they are, at first thought David didn't like being in the new place, perhaps, and just was acting out. And eventually, David was growling and talking about things he shouldn't know about, quoting passages from the book Paradise Lost by Milton. And
And that's saying something. I had a course on Milton in college, and that's pretty arid
Now,
stuff.
do you remember when you looked at it? Do you remember if it was at that point they called in the paranormal investigators, or
It was
or did they just arrive? I think they called them in, didn't they?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't. I'm sorry, guys. I don't remember either. My brain is not working. Anyways,
For some reason, I thought they didn't call them in until after he had done some crimes, but
no. They were there when David was possessed.
Oh, was that Ed and Lorraine?
Ed and Lorraine, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Ed and Lorraine Warren were, they had been called in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was Ed that said that David was possessed by 40 different spirits. The parents were desperately trying to get a priest to agree to do an exorcism, but of course, the criteria to get an exorcism it's a lot, right?
Was it what? And if I'm not mistaken, something happened. Did something happen after Vatican II that it kind of changed the rules of whether they would do an exorcism or not, or did that happen later? I can't recall.
I think that the after Vatican II, it really got more strict. I think.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is it got more strict?
According to Father Malachi Martin, who was the head of exorcisms for the Catholic Church, of course, him being a controversial figure himself.
Yeah.
According to him on Coast to Coast AM, when he was being interviewed by Art Bell, the criteria for getting an exorcism is first you have to go to a doctor, see if the issue is physical, right? If the doctor can't figure it out, you're going to two different psychiatrists, and those psychiatrists have to be atheist.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. I get the logic in that.
Right. If the two atheist psychiatrists can't figure you out, at that point it's exorcism time. Oh, right. Boy. And the bishop still has to sign off on it. Right.
When I had an exorcist come to a place I was living, it was a lot easier. He was an in-law of the family of the girlfriend I was with at the time, and he was a Shinto priest, interestingly enough. And he came in the house because we were having some pretty stark manifestations. So if you're new to the Walter Bosley channel, I crossed my Rubicon years ago, folks. I don't get into debates over whether this stuff is real. Me personally, I'm convinced. You don't have to be, but you'll hear me talk in terms of this. But go ahead.
Well, my belief is 99% it's probably mental illness, but there's that 1%.
Oh, I would agree with you. Yeah. The majority of it is not going to be, but the fact that there is that 1%, it's kind of like what, again, I've said for a few years now about UFOs is, a very, very small percentage is going to be ET. But remember, folks, it only takes one.
Right.
ET saucer, and it only takes one authentic demonic possession to.
Well, so finally the Glitzels, they find some priests to perform the exorcism. I'm sure those priests made the parents sign a release just to cover their own butts. So there's probably a paper trail. So anybody doubting that it actually happened, there's more than likely a paper trail. All right. So they did. It took 3 different exorcisms to get the demons out of David, and towards the end, that last one, the boyfriend of Debbie Glitzel is Arne Cheyenne Johnson, the live-in boyfriend. Invited the demons into himself, much like Father Karras in the first Exorcist movie.
Yeah, when Father Karras does his, swine off the cliff routine.
Right. And of course, Ed and Lorraine, they pretty much chastised Arne pretty bad for doing that. That's like a no-no. You don't do
Well,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
it's, don't do this at home. These are professionals, right?
Right. In fact, Lorraine went to the police and warned the police to, keep your eye out on this family. They just invited darkness, and they're surrounded by darkness and stuff like that. Which, by the way, that means the police officer took notes and took a report.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Again, paper trail, guys.
Yeah.
For all you trolls and haters out there, there is documentation. So, anyways, Lorraine finishes up with the police officer. Things are going normal. Arne starts to show signs that, just like David's sign, the growling. He shows signs of being possessed.
Yeah.
Until one day, Arne calls out of his job so he can go with Debbie, his girlfriend. That at this point, I think they've moved in together. They go to her work at a pet grooming place, accompanied by Arne's sisters, and I guess there's a cousin there too. Needless to say, they lock up. They start drinking. The shop owner starts drinking. The shop owner starts getting handsy with the 9-year-old cousin. Arne releases the demon, starts stabbing the crap out of the shop owner. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. Devil made me do it case in a nutshell. Yeah. Ooh. So, and at that point, they go to trial, and the judge rules that you cannot use demonic possession as a defense because you cannot prove or disprove demonic possession.
And he goes to jail. I recall he gets.
Yes, he goes to jail, but he only serves like a quarter of his sentence. He gets out at 1986, and he marries Debbie Glitzel. So, and then of course everybody.
Glitzel sounds like something you put on a Christmas tree. Go ahead.
Yes. Or it sounds like a pastry. Give me a Glitzel, please.
I'll have it. It's Glitzel time.
Oh yes, I'll have the vegan Glitzel.
The vegan. Yeah, that's Gil. He wants the vegan Glitzel.
Oh yes,
yeah, Gil's the only guy in heaven asking for vegan shit.
Oh my goodness, I miss that guy.
Yeah.
But back to where we were. Yeah, so that's the devil made me do it case, and these two cases are linked through the fact that we have to deal with Legion, right? Yeah. David Glitzel, who's possessed by more than 40 demons, and then Roland Doe, who claims himself that he is Legion. He told the priest that he is Legion in Latin.
Yeah. I'll tell you that I can't wait till next month too when we talk about Exorcist 3 because
Exorcist 3 is going to be a roller coaster ride.
Yeah,
this is all setting up Exorcist 3.
Have you ever I talked about having that Exorcist come into the home that I lived in. It was out in Rancho Mirage, and we were having just a heavy presence. One night there was someone standing at the foot of the bed, and they were not happy. They were not a positive thing. Well, long story short, we had the exorcist, the Shinto priest, come in and do his thing, and he identified a couple of items that, sure enough, a couple of them I had brought. One in particular I had brought from Afghanistan. And he said that there was something attached to that. It was this beautiful rug of an Afghan woman with a teapot, and she was wearing the hijab. And of course, it's what it is, folks. If you've ever seen these, they're like photo rugs. They're works of art that are the way it's woven. The farther you get from it, the more, the image. And we had her hanging on a wall, and he said, just no uncertain terms, get rid of this, get
Right.
this out of here. And also get this, a coconut monkey that my sister had brought to me from Hawaii. He said, get rid of that.
Oh, wow.
Now we took these items and we put them in our garage. Now the back wall of the garage, when you pull into the garage where you're facing, that wall on the other side of that was the bedroom.
Right.
And folks, here's the thing. You guys know I'm a former federal investigator, okay? I'm a professional investigator. I don't exaggerate stuff, but I'm telling you, from the very first night that we moved those items to the garage, they were in a green duffel bag, setting on top of firmly and securely on top of some boxes. They never fell off or anything, just on the other side of that wall. And we were hearing this like a human knocking from the inside of that garage, on that wall that was just on the other side of the head of the bed, the
Right.
headboard of the bed. It got so bad in that house that we, for 2 weeks, we slept in the living room. And this was before, well, no, this was after The Exorcist even came in, because and finally one day I just got tired of it and went back there and said, hey, whatever you are, whoever you are, this house is for the living. And I said, we're staying in our room again. And it seemed to calm it down. But the wrappings, that was my first experience with real, honest to goodness wrappings, as they call them. And then I experienced it after that in this house during my initial Empire of the Wheel investigation. Take it for what it's worth.
Right. I'm a believer for sure. I've never really been in a situation it's poltergeist-esque or haunting-esque.
Todd, it's some of them are not scary at all, like the crying woman that I heard in my uncle's house. And you can go online and see this house, folks. The Pope Golson house in Prattville, Alabama. When I heard the crying woman, oddly, when I was experiencing that, it wasn't scary. I still didn't have the balls to walk downstairs and see it, but standing there listening, it didn't scare me. But these wrappings and the stuff going on in that apartment, it was like a duplex kind of thing.
Right.
That was disturbing. And the stuff during the Empire of the Wheel investigation didn't feel good.
It's interesting you mentioned the artifacts you brought that you had from Afghanistan and the monkey cup.
Well, and I still have stuff I've brought from Africa, from Bosnia. I had this African cheetah head that I didn't realize it, but it had shards of human teeth for the fangs. I have this African skull somewhere in a box that literally has actual human teeth. It's obvious that they're human teeth. You travel and you bring stuff back. I'm looking around the room at stuff I have from other places, and I'm wondering what is the wisdom of that.
Right. Well, in not in the movie, Pazuzu, the demon Pazuzu, plays sort of a minor role, but in the book, it's much bigger. And you see like the statue of Pazuzu, right? And it seems like Pazuzu sort of carries that spirit, that demon.
Yeah.
And it's in the second movie, of course, Exorcist 2, Pazuzu plays a way bigger role. In fact, that's like revealed that that's the actual demon that's pulling all the strings and this, that, and the other. But interestingly enough, it's like the influence of The Exorcist in itself. Back to the Exorcist being a CIA script and The Observer.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely has its influences. It had its influences on this one gentleman who actually changed his name to Pazuzu. Pazuzu
Yes.
Algarad.
That was one creepy sumbitch. I mean,
Yes.
all the tattoos and the house he was in, and I mean, folks, this guy's place was so bad that they bulldozed it.
Yeah, you couldn't see the floor.
Yeah.
And he filed his teeth down to points and braided metal into his hair. He was an open Satanist. He had his own little sort of cult family. He was a serial killer. He killed. He is convicted of killing 3 men, although he had talked about killing more. He was born in San Francisco, of all places. Of course, San Francisco is being the big MK Ultra place because geographics and all that.
Yeah.
But then moving to North Carolina, and he kills himself in prison. But that's the influence of a movie like The Exorcist.
Yeah, that he would name himself after, the demon in the picture, and
Pazuzu is a Mesopotamian. I can't even say it right.
Mesopotamian, and
the Mesopotamian demon.
In the opening of The Exorcist, Father Marin is at an archaeological dig.
Right.
There I was in Iraq, and there was an ancient ruin, and my buddy I was working with, my team leader, said, "Hey, we got time, let's go in." So we went in and looked around. As I'm standing there, I realized, oh my God, I know where we're at. And it is where they filmed the opening of the first film.
Oh, wow.
And, I
did that give you chills?
Yeah. And let me tell you, I've talked about this. I talked about it in the Nimza book that I just finished. I've talked about it on other, in interviews, and I've talked about it here at the channel. Of all my trips I took, I mean, I went to Afghanistan like 3 or 4 times. That was a war zone when I was there. Of all my trips, and I've been to dangerous places, had close calls, but being in Iraq, it was weird. I thank my lucky stars and God that I was there with Eric, my buddy. He's one of 2 people on that job that I would say, thank God I was with, that I could have been with, and one of them's him. And but it was really weird. I was fine while we were there, but when it came time to leave, I got torqued up, and I got this impending dread.
Oh,
and
wow.
I couldn't relax. We transited through Amman, Jordan, one of my favorite places in the world, in the Middle East in particular. I always enjoyed working in Amman. I worked there several times. And we transited through there. We were staying at a nice hotel at the Four Seasons, and there for 2 nights, and I could not relax. The fact that I did not enjoy my transit through Amman, Jordan on my way home after Iraq tells you how torqued up I was. And I was afraid that even the transiting through Europe, through I think I went through one of the 2 airports in London, in England, Heathrow or the other one. What was weird was I didn't feel like I was going to be safe until my feet were back in the US.
Right.
And then it dissipated. So was something trying to follow me home? Was it just, no other trip ever torqued me up like that.
Right.
Now, and I visited one of the locations of where the first movie was filmed, kind of early in the trip.
Right. Now, I don't remember the lady's name. Do you remember the lady's name who did the voice of the possessed Regan?
Mercedes McCambridge, a wonderful character actress who's in one of my favorite movies of all time, Giant, a George Stevens picture about a Texas oil family. And Mercedes McCambridge plays Luz, the sister, in the picture. And
I didn't have time to look it up, but what exactly did her kid do to her? Like, was she like victimized by her child? Right? Was that what happened? Something terrible happened to her
in real life.
Yeah,
I'm not aware of this.
That's part of the Exorcist curse.
Oh, so maybe elder abuse or something
like that, or I don't know. She she's not alive still.
Right.
Right. I don't know. Maybe he killed her and the rest of the family.
Ooh, I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up about Mercedes McCambridge.
Yeah, or maybe it's just abuse of some sort.
Yeah,
But
that's too bad.
what you know what I've been thinking about a lot about lately is as far as like demonic possession. The thing that takes it out of the realm of supernatural and puts it in the realm of science is what Dr. Farrell talked about on trans-cosmic or trans-temporal cosmic warfare.
By the way, before I forget, Friedkin just passed away this summer, not too long ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But go ahead.
Well, and I was just gonna say, what takes it out of the realm of the supernatural and puts it into the realm of science is the plasma life hypothesis that Dr. Farrell was talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's fascinating, right? That puts a whole new twist on The Exorcist.
Yeah, because if something can, plasmatically get inside you, which you could, you could, within the logic of that discussion, you could see that.
Yeah,
that does bring whole new meaning to, whole new consideration for some type of possession, and not just demonic. They say there are different kinds of possession. We, of course, are talking about demonic possession, but you're right. The whole plasma conversation just opens up, a myriad of possibilities where the supernatural, where the paranormal is concerned, as far as validity,
Well, I thought it was really interesting, and we're going to be talking a lot more about this next month, of course. That he talks about like the Aztec pyramids and like demonic possession via the Aztec.
How they totally went in a very dark direction with the blood sacrifice. Folks, I recommend you read Grid of the Gods by Joseph P. Farrell and Scott D. DeHart.
Right. And his new book, the Demon in the Acre. Buy that one, guys.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think I've got that. Oh no, I put it on the shelf.
Yeah.
My Joseph Farrell shelf, which yes, I do have one because he's got that many books. Pretty soon he might be catching up with Nick Redfern, who is the Louis Lamar, I think, of the paranormal research field. Louis Lamar. The reason I say that is when I was a young lad, long before you were born on this world, Todd, you would go to the bookstore and you'd go to the Western fiction section. Okay. You'd have Max Brand, you'd have, the other guys. And then you'd have Louis Lamar was like half of the section, 3 whole shelves, because he wrote, so many. Speaking of which, Louis Lamar, the interesting little anecdote, his daughter said that she never saw him so obsessed with any of his writings during the time, she was around, as she did with his last 2 novels, which were Last of the Breed and then The Haunted Mesa. And the Last of the Breed deals with psychic, possibly MK Ultra stuff, now that I think about it. An Air Force pilot is downed in the Siberian, tundra. But The Haunted Mesa is literally a throwback to his early pulp days, and it's about another dimension and interdimensional people moving between dimensions.
Right.
So Louis Lamar was a guy who had more on his mind than just cow pokes and gun shooters and gunslingers and all of that. But this is one of those things where when you're convinced, the things that when I really get convinced of something, I honestly, folks, seriously, I do not feel the need to convince others. I do not feel the need to, really, guys, really, to have other people agree with me.
I don't feel that need either.
Because when you become convinced of something, when something demonstrates to you that it's real, you don't need to. It doesn't matter if anyone else. Now, when I am having an encounter like the UFO experience, I do have presence of mind enough, if there's someone else with me, to be smart about it. And before I say anything, I tell them, describe to me what you're seeing. And I would do the same with ghosts. I would do the same with, any kind of weird phenomena. And you'd be like, hey, describe to me what it is that we're looking at, because I want to see if they're seeing the same thing. Now, imagine if they're not. That's wild, I think. But this is one of those things where, and I think that might be, I think for whatever reason, maybe I sensed it as a 9-year-old kid, when this movie came out, 8 years old when it hit theaters. It just seemed too real to me. Right. And it still has bothered me into my adult years. I just turned 60 the other day, and The Exorcist still gives me anxiety. It's still too real. It's and it has funny parts. Don't get me wrong. People say, how can that movie freak you out? It's funny. There is some great humor in that film.
Right.
You know
what? You know what I've been doing? I've been like pretending like it's The Exorcist, but it has Big Lebowski characters in it. Can you imagine that? Walter, her head turned all the way around, man. Exactly. And like John Goodman's character is like, that bitch possessed herself.
Yeah, he would just walk in with a 45. Blam, 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 blam.
Yeah, and like, shut the F up, Donnie, would come from Reagan, right?
Yeah. Oh, that would be wild.
Yeah, and like, he's rolling a joint, talking to Reagan.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, the actor who played Father Karras, Jason Miller, isn't his son Patrick, what's his name, who was in The Lost Boys?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I knew that he was a stage actor.
Yeah, he was a stage actor, I believe, who had never done a film, and Friedkin, that's why he wanted him. I'm getting ready to put my glasses over because let me see, I have a text from my producer here.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, yes. Okay. Very good. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, so it's just something that for me, it's a very real thing. And now, as a criminal investigator, I would go into it. I think the way the Exorcists go into it, I would be extremely skeptical that what I was dealing with was just some asshole trying to use this for some type of insanity plea or whatever. But all the while not being completely closed to the idea that one of these entities could make someone do something like that. Now, when you when you look at MK Ultra, and you look at that article, which there's more that when you read about MK Ultra, I've got the books right there. Read Journey into Madness and read In Search of the Manchurian Candidate. Those are two good books. They talk about the bit about Jesus has gone to the south, that kind of thing. Mary has left the north, Elvis has left the building, that kind of thing. When you think that they would use something like that on people, that's heinous. To me, it's just as insidious as when men of the cloth, tell their congregations crap that they don't know is any more true than their congregations. But it's the whole trust me, bro, I have an ordination. And they're there's a point that I'm coming to that it kind of slipped there, and I'm trying to get back to it. Oh yes, there was this thing that, as a lover of horror literature and film, I love this, but it really, imagine how maddening this is. There was the psych warfare application in Vietnam, in which they gave to the Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, to play audio of horrific recordings of ghostly wailings, and taught like they're talking from the dead, which scared the hell out of people in that culture.
Well, you know who was doing that was part of the Phoenix program. That was Michael Aquino.
Yes.
And Michael Aquino,
that's right,
was Anton LaVey's right-hand man in the Church of Satan until he broke off and started the Temple of Set. Michael Aquino, who was accused of being a child molester as well. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have you seen this recent thing, the resemblance that Taylor Swift apparently has to Anton LaVey? Is it LaVey's daughter? Or is it it is uncanny.
Yeah, I mean,
well, almost like she could be her mom, you know.
Right. Kind of. Well, sometimes I wonder if she comes through, because I'm blind, so I always wonder, because she lives so close to me, like if she comes through the donation line, like
that'd be hilarious.
Come through the donation line, I just don't know because I can't see.
That'd be well. I'll give you a clue. Have you had a really tall young blonde woman?
Yeah,
tall center, because she's really tall.
Yeah, but the problem is we got a lot of rich people in Franklin with trophy wives, and they're all pretty tall.
Oh yeah, because these guys married Barbies, you know.
Oh yeah, they're definitely. But I can't see what they look like. So I mean, it is. I can see their silhouettes, but I can't see.
You know what, Todd? Here's one blessing in that. I think that makes you impervious to glamoury.
Yeah, there you go.
Right, that makes you impervious to glamoury, because you're not going to see it.
Right.
So the Tuatha-De-Danann and or dark bad entities couldn't fool you with that.
Right. Now I would be interested to know if there was an MK Ultra element in the Devil Made Me Do It case. Now, hopefully Malia can come on with us next month, and we can talk a little bit more about the Devil Made Me Do It case, because I think that she has a lot more insight, or would have a lot more insight than me. Now, the interesting thing about possession, like the Emily Rose possession, right? That's a situation where psychiatrists diagnosed her of having a sort of neurosis due to helicopter parenting and based around religious iconography. But my thesis, and what I'm saying to you, is there's no the devil would possess someone who's mentally ill, right? That would exasperate. Yeah, there's no reason that a demon would possess just a healthy person, right? If you possess a mentally ill person, that muddies the water. Where does the mental illness end and the possession begin?
But the problem there would be, depending upon what the demon is after. If the person is not functional, if the demon needs a functional, socially functional, host,
right,
then that could be a problem. But I do see, I agree with your point. They could possess people all day long.
It's always going to be temporary anyways, for the most part.
We have over here, not far from where I live, up on what's called Highland Avenue, Patton State Hospital for the Criminally Insane.
Ooh.
And I had to go in there once when I was doing background investigations for Uncle Sam back in 2007. One of the employees had applied for federal work and was going to get a clearance. So I had to go there to Patton. And let me tell you, the fences are high, and they are concertina wired like you wouldn't believe. Double fencing, double gating, and it is for the criminally insane. And I wonder, I wonder if I could find out if there's anyone in there who may be, who, according to any kind of documentation or reporting that they would, admit to, I wonder if there's any possessed individuals inside that facility.
That's interesting. What was I going to say? Like, yeah, that would be like when we get into the Exorcist 3 next month. It's good that you brought that up, because it's a hospital or a place for the criminally insane is a big part of the Exorcist 3.
Jason Patrick, that's the actor's name.
Oh,
Jason
really?
Patrick. Because I believe that Jason Miller, his father, married Jackie Gleason's daughter. Jason Patrick is the grandson of Jackie Gleason. And if you look at young photos of Jackie Gleason when he was a little slimmer and he had his looks still, Jason Patrick looks remarkably like his maternal grandfather. But here's an interesting thing. I want it's like Robert Downey Jr. and that whole riff in Tropic Thunder. You folks, remember Jackie Gleason is connected to the UFO file that DJ talks about through Richard Nixon. I believe it was Nixon that showed Jackie Gleason. I think it was Nixon or Carter. Anyway, a president allegedly gave Jackie Gleason access to see, the Blue Room or whatever it was. And then Jackie Gleason's daughter marries Jason Miller, who goes on to star in The Exorcist, a very disturbing, potentially MK Ultra film. Isn't that an interesting thread? And then Jason Patrick, of course, he ends up in a vampire movie that's beloved by many fans, but
not just a vampire movie in the serial killer capital of the world at that time. It's shot in Santa Cruz.
Shot in Santa Cruz. That's right. That's right. And very, very interesting stuff.
That's interesting in itself, because again, like, we talk about the 4P or 4Pi every episode just about, and the Santa Cruz Mountains was one of their places, one of their ritual spots. Another great, I know we're talking about films in real life, but we should also and we can maybe get into this a little bit more next month, but talk about Twin Peaks a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Because what did David Lynch know? Right? Because that was a possession TV show, right? Yeah. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but that is a great.
Yeah, if you've never seen Twin Peaks, folks,
in my opinion.
Yeah, if you've never seen Twin Peaks, it's on streaming. You can find it, and the most recent season had the Nazi Bell in it.
So not only that, what Dr. Farrell was talking about with the A-bomb test, he had that negative picture, right? Episode 8 of The Return, you're actually inside the A-bomb test. You're inside the explosion for most of the episode.
Yeah.
So what the heck does David Lynch know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's wild stuff. Now, I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if this is accurate anymore, but the writer's strike was affecting apparently the release of some series, including season 4 True Detective, but that was supposed to premiere this month, so I was assuming that was completely in the can, as they say. And so I hope it doesn't get delayed.
I'm surprised that I thought they would have been done. If they weren't done, it had to have just been like reshoots or something.
Yeah. I don't think that it's going to be delayed, and of course, with the strike being over now,
right? There you go again. You have talking about the possession, right? Possession, satanic ritual, just the whole idea of it. The True Detective season 1, right? That is like, those guys they may not be possessed by demons, but they might as well be.
Well, you have a bit of. Do we have multiple personality in Errol Childress?
Right.
Because remember when you see him in his home, he slips into that Charles Lawton voice briefly, but
Yeah.
there's old movies on TV and stuff. And, fine constitutional this morning, dear. Before he does sexual things with his sister. It's yeah. I mean, what can you say about that? It's Lovecraftian,
Right.
pure Lovecraftian.
Well,
Obviously, it's bless you.
excuse me.
It is Robert W. Chambers with The King in Yellow. It's all that classic, weird.
Well, we should save that for next month too, because one of the things we'll be talking about is a certain person whose mother basically said that he had multiple personality disorder. So,
okay,
in connection with, and this connects to the Exorcist 3, but if we're talking about Harold Childress having multiple personalities,
Oh yeah, Errol Childress, the character folks we're talking about, True Detective season 1.
Mm-hmm.
God, I really hope that this is season 4 is either when Rust was I'll take Rust as a kid, being in it, but I really hope it's during those 8 years.
Yeah.
That he's growing the hair and the mustache. I hope they surprise us pleasantly.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it wouldn't be Marty because he was away from there, but
right.
he went to Alaska for those 8 years, and that's where it takes place. And if I'm not mistaken, you do see you get glimpses of the cars and certain things that, some of it could be the early 2000s, some of it could be the 1980s. So it should be interesting. But I've strayed us off the course from The Exorcist.
That's okay. How long have we been going?
We've been going an hour and 17, so let's jump over into the.
If it's okay, can I do the song of the month?
Oh yes,
ladies and gentlemen, the song of the month is. Hopefully, I have this the right side up because I can't see anything. But y'all let me know if it is or if it isn't. I Want to Be Adored by the Stone Roses from their self-titled album that came out in 1989, with lyrics like "I don't need to sell my soul; he's already in me." Conjures up imagery of demonic possession. It is the perfect companion piece, in my opinion, to the song "Sympathy for the Devil," a process church ideology inspired song by the Rolling Stones. And for example, the Rolling Stones song sort of covers the macrocosm of history. Right, the devil was involved in all these sort of his historical events to create sort of change and chaos. Where in "I Want to Be Adored" by the Stone Roses deals with that sort of wannabe dictator or dictator who willingly invites the demon or devil inside himself in sort of and has a sort of symbiotic, parasitic relationship with the entity itself.
Yeah.
All right, Walter, we're ready to go. I highly recommend the song "I Want to Be Adored."
Excellent. Thank you. So, are we ready for questions?
Yes.
Okay, folks, we have about 10 minutes, let's say. So,
okay.
all caps, please.
Walter, one more thing.
Yeah.
I told my friend at work I'd plug his little if it's okay, I'd plug his little antique vintage store. It's called the Rusted Rat, and it's in East Nashville. Sadly, the print isn't big enough for me to see the street. But if you're in East Nashville, look up the Rusted Rat for any antiques and vintage needs that you may have. All right, I'm ready to go.
It sounds like our kind of place. So, okay,
Yeah.
folks, remember all caps. If you want us to see it, if you want us to comment, or if you want us to answer your question. If there are no questions, that's okay. Sometimes we stun the live chat with such a fantabulous presentation that their minds are just boggled and they can't think of questions. Even Philip Blair has not come up with one yet.
Oh, wow.
That tells you how amazing. Johnny Side says January, True Detective season 4 in January. Damn it.
Oh, okay.
We got to wait for it even longer. Thank you, Johnny Side, for that information. Yeah, folks, go back, watch the first episode of season 2, and you will see Hecate symbolism. I can never get the pronunciation right of the institute that Rachel McAdams' father is the leader of. This hippie institute place begins with a P, but if you look up the ancient history of that, it's named after an ancient city-state that were Hecate venerators.
That's interesting. In season 2, I always thought that like that commune kind of reminded me of Greenfield Ranch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So at that, this is why I throw out my speculative hypothesis that Pizzolatto was trying to go there, keep this show rolling forward. And I think after somebody saw the first episode, some executive, somebody get the word out like hell you will. And that's why we ended up with the season we ended up with. And then by the time we get to the third one, it was forget it. I think they took the wind out of his sails. I think he was possibly scared out of doing,
Right.
So, yeah, folks, this is October, finally. The beginning of my favorite season of the year. I want you all to watch your favorite spooky movies, horror films, or whatever. I'm going to be at some point this month working on the Bride of Frankenstein model kit that our good friend Cardinal Sin sent to me.
Oh yeah.
Because this is the Halloween season, and it's a good time to work on that. So I've been very busy and was out of town and taking care of other stuff. But I am going to get back to doing the Walter Builds models videos. And so you'll see the Bride of Frankenstein one in progress. It's an interesting model kit in that you have to build the laboratory. The laboratory is as much a part of the whole kit as the bride herself is. So, in honor of our friend Gil, I'll be jumping on that. Yes. Speaking of
movies, I just saw X and a little mini review. I thought the movie was fantastic.
Oh, that's right. Yes. You mentioned
$13 million budget. It's already made close to between 35 and 40 billion dollars.
Oh, wow.
Or $1 million. I'm sorry. Not billion.
I like to see success like that.
Yeah.
Philip Blair asks, is possession ever positive? You know what? I say logically it because things are a scale, things are a what's the thing there's positive is the opposite of negative. If there is a negative, there's a positive. So I think it's possible. Obviously we don't hear about those as much. They'd make a funny movie though if someone was possessed with a positive spirit. It's been done.
I love those guys who do the channeling. Because they're always they always channel like it's always like a king of Atlantis or something like that, or it's never like the janitor.
Yeah, exactly. It's
or
never
the socially awkward person.
Yeah. Patrick Bateman says, just looked up the song. Thank you guys. Have either of you read the book The Omen? You mean like from the movie series The Omen? No, I have not read the book. If so, any thoughts on the Moonchild thing and the homunculus thing? That's a whole discussion there, Patrick. That's a good subject you brought up.
Right.
I do talk about Rick Spence and I talk about Aleister Crowley's Moonchild novel, and how it was very, very likely influenced by what he learned about what was going on in San Bernardino, California in 1915. And we go into the details as to why we think that in Empire of the Wheel 1. The homunculus thing, yeah, this is a big discussion that we'll have to have, down the road. Just wondering if that and Hollywood Jar Babies. That's interesting.
Hollywood Jar Babies.
I don't know what that is. Patrick Bateman says, great question. I think that's called channeling. Yes, channeling. You're right. Yeah, positive possession, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, I channel for hours at a time. I just wander aimlessly.
yeah.
If I don't have a TV guide, man, it's just.
Yeah. Hey, one of these days we might have you try to do a remote for us at the Parthenon.
Okay, yeah, I'll bring my remote control, and I'll just I'll set it up and I'll just stare at it, and you guys can watch me drool. Yeah,
that's one thing that when I've been to Nashville, I was either on Air Force business or I was, doing stuff with other folks, and a big Athena guy like me, you'd think I would have gone to see your guys' local Parthenon, and I haven't yet.
Yeah. Nashville's changed. I mean, it's so over. It's really gotten
well, the country music industry changed with that friggin' Garth Brooks,
Yeah, that's true.
He really, I agree with Alan Jackson and some of those older guys, that yikes.
I live right by Alan Jackson's old house.
Really? I used to listen to country music. I mean, I grew up hearing it because my parents listened to it, but in the early 90s, I was almost exclusively listening to that. And then Brooks comes on the scene, and increasingly it's like, what the hell kind of MK Ultra crap is he doing to country music?
Right. I mean, that dude was out on Saturday Night Live. That should tell you something.
Yeah, this Chris Gaines stuff, but
yeah,
but even bringing this rock and roll arena, it's, and then in the by the early 2000s, it was every aging 40-year-old rocker who couldn't make it in the rock business goes to Frosty tips his hair, puts on an Ed Hardy shirt and goes to Nashville. And
I mean, if you want like quality country, like Americana country music, like I would recommend the album Casadega by Bright Eyes.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it's old school. It sounds great.
I would love to hear somebody out of Nashville do a an old West cowboy song with some Spanish guitar in it, like Marty Robbins and, some of those guys. But no, it's all about this pseudo pop crap.
Well, they have industry. It's industry songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody tries to create industry friendly music.
Well, this goes back to the 90s when Clear Channel, came, the Clear Channel phenomena, where they just came in and bought all the radio stations up and said, you will all use the same programming nationwide, no matter, and then that was the homogenizing.
Right. And it's gotten so bad. I mean, like even the indie music scene in Nashville has gotten to be like industry friendly.
They're possessed.
Yeah, they are possessed. They're possessed by greed, and like they want to be adored. They want
to be adored.
They want to be adored. They don't have to sell their soul. He's already in them.
Philip Blair asked, what are our favorite possession books? Read The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Read that book. It's well done. Get your hands on, books
some of my favorite possession in TV shows is Dark Shadows. That Patafi, he knows how to possess somebody.
Yeah, he do. Yeah, absolutely. Philip Blair says, what do you mean MK Ultra Guard? But no, Friends in Low Places is like, there's two songs of his that I like. Friends in Low Places, but there was the one, I'm much too young to feel this damn old.
Yeah.
That's a good country song. even though I've never related to that. I'm 60. I turned 60, and I swear to God, except when I look in the mirror, I don't think of myself as being 60. I just don't. But it's a good song. But after that, it was he was the Garth Brooks phenomenon, and what he did to Nashville, what he ushered in was pure evil. Darth. Has someone made the connection? Is he Darth Brooks? He was Darth Brooks. Chris Gaines was Darth Brooks. I'm sure. Nick N, the man who sent me this right here, among many other items, asked, does anyone talk about Crossroads anymore?
Ooh, like Robert Johnson at the Crossroads.
Scarier sure as hell does, let me tell you.
Yeah, the Crossroads where he went to, Robert Johnson, that was in Mississippi, wasn't it?
Yes, I believe so. Folks, speaking of Scarier, remember, next weekend is NIMSACon.
Ooh.
So get your streaming tickets, line up, buy your streaming tickets. Okay. You're not going to $20 to see Scarier, Olaf Phillips, Joseph Farrell, Alan Greenfield, and Walter Bosley. And also we added Dave Allen. Okay. Ooh. So, folks, $20.
Doesn't get much better than that. $20.
You can sit at home in your underwear eating chili with your fingers. No one will know. No one will know.
Right. I mean, and if you're possessed, that $20, that's a cost for two people to watch.
Yeah, and you don't have to, you don't have to leave your house. I'm telling you, folks, NIMSACon. Well, hey, folks, we're at the hour and 31 minutes and 51 second point, and as usual, the Killifornia episode whizzes by, just speeds by. And let's see. So, Todd, I want to thank you again for being here, and really looking forward to the next Killifornia episode, Exorcist 3.
Right. Guys, remember this was all set up for next month. Next month is gonna be a wild ride.
Yeah. It's So I want you to enjoy your Halloween season, and just enjoy it. And because look, the spooky doesn't end on November 1st. It continues on. To me, Halloween to New Year's is one wonderfully spooky season.
Oh yes.
So there we go. So
thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here. Buy Walter Bosley's books, but the NIMSA book, buy that.
Yes. Yeah. Let me say something on that. The people who pre-ordered it, their orders will be processed first. We're going to be doing that over the next week. And then we will put up the link for folks to buy the new book, NIMSA. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Right. And if you're in East Nashville, check out the Rusted Rat. Pretty awesome place.
Please do.
I am so honored to be here with you guys every month. Thank you so much for having me. And until next month.
Yes, Todd. Thank you. And we will see you then.
See you then.
Okay, folks, that's it. Another enjoyable episode of Killifornia with Todd Wood. And I'm glad it's October. I am looking forward, as usual, to Halloween, but I'm looking forward to the NIMSACon coming up. Again, folks, get your streaming tickets. You'll enjoy it. It'll be fun. We're even going to have, some video on hand when we give the tour. So you folks who get streaming tickets, it's not just this 5-speaker day. you'll get to see video as we go on the tour around Sonora and visit the Sonora Aero Club sites, okay, and other things. Malia will be there doing a paranormal investigation tour, and you're not going to want to miss that. But it's going to be a lot of fun, and you'll even see our tiki party that we're going to have on Saturday night, just hanging around the pool and just kind of relaxing after what I'm sure will be a successful show. So, folks, that starts a week from this Friday. It starts on Friday the 13th. Next weekend, you get your streaming tickets before then. You won't want to miss it. I'm waiting to hear back confirmation from a couple of folks I've asked to be on the live stream. We're going to have Nick Redfern sometime this month. So anyway, look for those announcements and things on the community tab. So that's it for me, folks. I'm out of here. And thanks again for everyone in the live chat. Thank all of you who aren't in the live chat. And I thank all of you folks who pre-ordered the NIMSA book. Again, it's done. It's loaded in the printer distribution service app, and we will be getting those ordered for you. And thank you again. We appreciate that. So, okay, folks, that's it. Have a good night.